is not letting anyone live. I introduce everyone's names thinking they'd last more than 2 chapters. Our boy looks at Jikaji and says that someone who abandoned their sister is a waste of life. He had to finish them off since they were planning to rob him. This guy is seriously unhinged. He walks away saying the government should reward him for his pure actions. And with that, the house was wiped out. The street, as always, was full of zombies. Some were climbing a building. From the window, a woman says she sees a superhero. Another one shows up and tells her to hide so the zombies will stop gathering against them. But you can bet that outside, an expert was passing through everything. The problem was that it wasn't possible to see his name and title as he leveled up. The girl says that's irrelevant. They should shout and ask that guy to save them. My friend, I don't know you, but if I could give you a tip, don't call for this guy. He's more dangerous than anyone. But the husband says that if he's hiding his information, something's off. Suddenly, our boy receives some hearts and a little dance on his phone. And from the top floor, a girl appears, calling out to her big brother, obviously offering help in exchange for being saved. But our boy completely ignores her and continues down the street. For him, those little items on the ground were much more important. The girl starts cursing him, saying she has over 30,000 fans, so he shouldn't be ignoring her. The crazy one says she'll make him pay and grabs a vase. Girl, don't do that. You don't know who you're throwing that at. But there she goes on her way to the next life. Obviously, our boy senses something strange. He steps aside, and the vase crashes to the ground. She turns all sweet, saying she's just upstairs and scared of the zombies, so he needs to save her. She even offers to hold his hand. Girl, I don't think he's very interested in that. He then pulls a piece of meat soaked in zombie virus from his inventory and throws it at her. That thing has the effect of attracting any creature within 100 meters. But the girl isn't happy with that at all and starts cursing, asking if he didn't understand that she wanted to be saved. Until suddenly, she hears a noise behind her. There was a horde of zombies attracted by the meat, and with that, another victim of our boy. The crazy girl was even live streaming on TikTok in the middle of the apocalypse. Soon we're going to need a new protagonist to take down this one. A horde of zombies then started throwing themselves off the building, heading in his direction. The creatures fell to the ground all twisted, but he kept walking calmly. He then made his way to the Mudu Gymnasium. That was the place he had been looking for. And in 2 hours, when night falls, it would be the perfect time to enter. He knew that besides that, there was a wild silver-ranked chest in that place. The system displayed a warning saying that when you see that sign, it means there's some special system happening. Wild chests were a type of treasure that could appear anywhere, and anyone could open them. On the other hand, a boss chest contained much rarer items, but at the same time it was much harder to obtain. As soon as he entered the gym, he received his first mission, to defeat 100 zombies on his own. The problem was that in that place, there were only level 2 zombies, and killing 100 of them wasn't an easy task. The initial plan was to sneak around grabbing each of the chests, but now that he got the mission, he'd have to do it. However, being lazy, he asked the system what would happen if he just ignored this objective. The system said that if he declined the mission, he'd receive 100 gold coins as compensation, but obviously, the reward for completing it would be much better. He then went to a room and broke the lock. Inside, he found the basketball zombie, and it was time to start the 100 kills. As always, a step forward and a stab to the face. But man, the thing tanked the stab. He had to deliver another one to the mouth. At least that bastard finally dropped the basketball. Our boy finds it ironic that the guy must have turned into a zombie while playing basketball and continued with the ball in his hand. And as always, the 100% drop box came. He gave the body a little kick and went to grab his super flashbang. Obviously, it's just a flashbang but super. Not much mystery there. But he got excited since for invading other people's houses, it's the perfect item. He also found the key to the gym's center. That was good because he wouldn't have to destroy the door and could enter quietly without attracting everyone. With that, he calmly moved in. He observed the area, which was full of zombies. In the darkness, the creatures were all slow and blind. Williams ran to the ping pong table and hid underneath. From there, he started counting and discovered there were 17 zombies just in that room. It was a dangerous chance, but it also meant 17 item boxes. If he could be silent, no other zombie would come in. He only needed 4 more to reach level 5, and then everything would become easier. One was walking right by, and he decided that would be the first. He gave a whip to the back of its neck. The first one fell to the ground, and with a noise, all the others were alerted. They immediately turned toward Lin Zi. Now the horde was rushing toward the boy, but the rascal was under the ping-pong table, chilling. They came closer, and he whipped 3 of them in the legs. The boy jumped out from under the ping-pong table with a maneuver. Not sure why he did all that swag, but he landed right behind them. He dashed forward and finished another one. With that, he completed 4 zombies and advanced to level 5. Now he needed 100 experience points to level up. Knowing he was in a tight space, he'd need more agility. He placed the point and climbed onto the table. With that, all the zombies started heading toward him. But since they were dumb, they got stuck at the edge, and it was easy for him to whip them in the face. Meanwhile, someone was watching from behind the door. A guy in a red shirt and bandana said he was an unlucky guy. Man, I agree with you, and if I could give you a tip, it would be to run away from here. The biggest danger has arrived. But the crazy guy was excited, thinking that a person who kills so many zombies must have a lot of resources. His plan was to wait for our boy to die so he could take everything. but that wasn't happening. The number of zombies was decreasing and the blonde guy realized he'd have to help our boy die. He'd do the great favor of bringing more zombies to help send him to the afterlife. At that moment, another one entered the room. Lindsay was thinking he made too much noise, and now someone was banging on the door where the blonde guy was hiding. Seeing the door damaged, he knew it wouldn't last much longer. He needed to eliminate the zombies in front of him and quickly retreat. But at that moment, 3 of them jumped at him. The Parker King pulled off another stylish move and spun away. The problem was that more and more zombies were arriving. Man, he made a shish kebab with 3 of them. He ran to rest under the table and saw that nearby he had picked up a single-use potion that would restore 20% of his energy and an additional 5% per minute for 5 minutes. For him, who was tired, it was perfect. As soon as he got up, he threw the sword, finishing off another one. This time, he saw a strange black box and quickly ran to grab it. Inside, there was a bracelet that allowed him to summon a spike skill once a day. He knew skill equipment was rare and equipped it immediately. At that moment, the door finally collapsed and a horde of zombies began approaching. But for him, who had just gotten that item, it was the perfect moment. A bunch of zombies was coming his way. He jumped onto the table and waited for them to get closer. Then he leaped over them all and activated the bracelet. From the ground, a ton of giant spikes suddenly emerged, and he said that now the game had really begun. Several spikes kept shooting out of the ground, taking down the zombies. That ability was as powerful as a level 20 mage's. More zombies came from behind, but the spikes easily finished them off. It looked like that thing was going to keep killing, and he didn't need to do anything. He received a bunch of items and experience, and the ability went into cooldown. The system explained it would take 24 hours to use it again, but he could also use mental energy to strengthen it. And as always, it was the best time of day to collect all the boxes. He found a Fortnite bazooka that allowed him to throw any object 30 meters away, as well as boots that increased movement speed by 20% for 10 seconds. The number of attributes he had was greater than someone who had already unlocked a class. This meant that at this rate, he had at least double the status points of most people. Another wave of zombies started approaching. He loaded that piece of meat soaked in zombie virus into the bazooka, fired it, and it drew all the creatures' attention. They moved to the corner of the room and he activated the boot's ability, easily leaving the fools behind. Sometime later, he was sitting on the stairs, exhausted. There was only 1 hour left until 8 p.m., and he knew how dangerous this place would become. First, this lazy madman needed to find a place to rest. He kept walking down the corridors using the master key he had received. But before opening a door, he wondered why it was locked from the inside. He knew this was the gym's infirmary, and considering the time it closed, it shouldn't have been locked. He opened it, hoping he wouldn't find another idiot who wanted to kill him. Slowly, he entered the room. And immediately, there was a sword at his neck with someone asking why he had the key to that place. But our boy just grabbed the arm and squeezed the wrist. With that, the blonde guy dropped the knife and our boy said he messed with the wrong person. I stepped back and he twisted the guy's arm. I thought he'd finish him off right then, but instead he stuffed a cloth into his mouth. He opened his inventory, grabbed a curtain, covered the window, and told them to turn on the lights. Out of nowhere, a nurse appeared saying that turning on the lights would attract a lot of zombies. He didn't give her a choice, and another person in the back of the room ended up turning them on. If I had to bet, only the girl in the tights would survive. The blonde guy recognized our boy as the person who had been killing a bunch of zombies, and he had wanted to steal the loot. And Lindsay told him to stop looking at him arrogantly when he was so weak. "Come closer, my blonde friend. I think you're headed for your next life." Our boy said he doesn't like people who hold grudges and slashed the guy's neck. The people in the infirmary were all terrified, and somehow the girl had lost her tights out of nowhere. Our boy then pulled a knife from the guy's sleeve, said that this guy had been preparing to kill him, and told them not to worry. He's a good person. Of course, everyone agreed, saying, yes, he's definitely a great person. But in truth, they were all scared to death. Lindsay said he's a reasonable person and that if they didn't try anything against him, he wouldn't kill anyone. Then someone stepped forward. Could it be that our boy finally gained some company, or will there be another strike and another victim? The girl put her tights back on, came forward, and said everyone saw that the boy deserved it. She asked the others, and they agreed, saying, yes, of course, he deserved it. Lindsay smiled, saying it was good to know everyone agreed with him. He realized he was much more tired than he had been in the morning. As a good lazy person, he told everyone to clean the room because he wanted to rest. Obviously, no one was going to go against the boy. He wrapped the blonde guy up and buried him in the ground. Our boy was just watching the queen of the tights, saying he had seen her somewhere before. She was still at level 0, and her name was Zhang Yexu. When he saw the name, he seemed to recognize it. In the past life, when he was down and out, she had already received a legendary profession known as the God Doctor. All messed up, he had told her he'd do anything if she could heal his wounds. But she warned him that the wound on his face involved the soul and couldn't be treated. Every time he was messed up, he found her and asked for treatment. Her weakness was that even though her profession was really good, it made her nothing more than a tool for others. She remembers that in the future, she ended up becoming a very different person than she is now. Maybe it was fate that brought them together again. Suddenly, they heard a sound coming from the air outside the door. Everyone armed themselves, watching to see what would appear, while Lindsay was calmly looking at his watch. Then he pulled out 3 cards and placed a feast on the table. Man, he started eating. Obviously, everyone in that room had been starving for a day and was drooling. Yeksu swallowed hard, asked where he got that food, and if they could have a little. Our boy smiled, saying it looked like she had fallen into his trap. He said that to get a little of that, she'd have to help him. Everyone was still excited, but the queen of the tights said to just tell her what he wanted. While she was already afraid, he asked for exactly what you're thinking. He showed her a paper and said he wanted all the medicines listed there. Slightly excited, she asked if he really just wants that. He says yes, unless she's looking to offer something more. She says obviously not, and she's going to collect everything now. The two guys were mechanics, and he quickly gives them a list of things he wants them to produce by 6 a.m. tomorrow. He hands over the items they'll need and tells them that what they'll receive in food will depend on what they produce. Obviously, he needed to be cautious, so he activates the watchful eye. The guy's inventory was packed with items. He still had 22 days worth of experience to reach level 6. He had 24 hours left to complete the mission, so he decided to rest a little. With that, night fell. The next day, he calmly woke up. The others obviously hadn't slept at all, spending the entire night producing what he had asked for. Our boy praised everyone, saying they had done a great job. The doctor patted the nurse on the shoulder, who looked almost dead from exhaustion. He handed a card to each of them, saying that now they wouldn't need to fight. Yeksu was thrilled. She thought that when they finished, he was going to kill everyone, so she already had an escape plan. Apparently, he wasn't as cruel as she had imagined. Sorry to tell you, girl, but he's actually worse than you think. She then asked how to use the card, and he realized that no one really knew what to do in this world yet. He decided to help her a bit more as a favor for everything she did in the past life. He showed her the system and how there's an option to use the card to make everything appear. She saw that and got all excited. With that, everyone activated their cards and began to feast. Seeing how lost she still was, he decided to give some tips, just in case she might be useful in the future. He told everyone to flee from the place after noon. That's because by then he would have killed all the zombies. He reminded them not to forget the time. Yeksu told him to be careful since there were a lot of zombies outside. However, he said she should worry a little more about herself. When he stepped outside, indeed, it was full of zombies, and there was a horde nearby. But after a whole night of rest, he was ready. He struck the first zombie, and it dropped a fishing rod. He didn't let the body hit the ground, trying to attract as few zombies as possible. And with that, he started cleaning up the corridor. It didn't take long before he was heading toward the door. He opened the list and wondered how the zombies were pulling this off while being dead. The poor zombie was just chilling in the bathroom. But as soon as our boy approached, it turned and started running. However, with its pants down, it fell to the ground like an idiot. Lindsay finished off another one. You had to be careful because in the gym, people had more trained bodies, so it was common for them to also be stronger. He then saw the women's restroom. He approached cautiously, worried there might be someone alive in there. Then he snapped back to reality, thinking it's the apocalypse and it didn't matter if he liked the women's restroom or not anymore. He slowly started entering. He didn't find anyone at first and began checking each stall, until in one he heard the sound of two creatures. When he opened it, he saw that the romance had continued even after death. It was a shame, but he had to end that connection. They sensed the attack but easily missed. There was a bottle on the ground, and once again, they tripped over it. With that, he finished off another two. This guy isn't quite right in the head. He even started taking pictures of the couple. He strangely seemed to recognize them. It seems that in the past life, they always hunted together and had a kind of synergy that made them unbeatable. But it was a shame that this time they died on the third day without accomplishing anything. As always, it was time to check the loot box. It was a fusion card that allowed him to combine 2 items to create a new one, possibly even upgrading to silver rank. He then looked back and saw a strange light coming from one of the stalls. He approached it and saw a chest floating above a pentagram. That was the wild chest, and he would need to stay there for 30 seconds to open it. He waited for a bit, and a green apple appeared. He started praying that it would be some kind of strength or agility item. He checked the description, and the item increased his physique stat by 2 attribute points, which was basically health. He would have preferred agility, but at least it wasn't that bad. He washed the apple and ate it right away, excited that in this life he's eating much better than in the past. He left the restroom thinking that this place was giving him a lot of good stuff. Outside, he encountered another crowd. Man, this time he really saw the whole crowd. He moved to a corner to avoid attracting all the zombies at once. As soon as 2 of them approached, he whipped them in the neck. 2 more came and they went down too. Man, this kid is making it rain with these creatures. He's spending all the resources he gets on strength. Inside a box, he found a lion bracelet. It gave a 10% chance to intimidate a person for 1 second, causing their movements to freeze. The system then showed all the equipment slots and explained what could go into each one. He immediately equipped the lion bracelet. Slowly, he resumed walking through the gym, casually sipping a juice. That's when he opened a room full of zombies or maybe dead doctors. I'm not sure. He comes to the conclusion that based on the injuries and the way the disaster was caused, it could only have been a zombie boss. A type of creature much stronger than others of the same level, and one that usually feeds on humans. In the absence of humans, even feeds on other zombies. The stronger the creature, the easier it is for it to become a zombie. That's why out of 1 trillion mosquitoes, only 1 turns into a zombie. And usually, mutated animals also hunt zombies. Then he notices something. Based on the numerous cuts on the body, it seemed like a zombie cat had done this. This was always one of the types he hated most since they had extremely sharp senses. If that creature was around, it probably already knew about him, so maybe he'd walked into a trap. He focuses, trying to notice if something's approaching. That's when something seems to alert him. The second he opens his eyes, he almost gets grabbed by the cat. He barely dodges and throws his boomerang sword. Not only was that a mutant creature, but it was also a boss. The creature had incredible agility and could create false images, reducing damage by 50%. It also had talents for a sharp attack and heightened vision. The list of attributes for this thing was long, and Lin Zi knew this meant it would also give a good reward. Even though it was a difficult creature, he still had 10 years of experience fighting things like this. The hack system detected the zombie cat and gave him the mission to kill it. The mission was called the Ungrateful Zombie Kitty. That's because the gym used to rescue several cats from the city, but after the apocalypse started and one of them turned, it went on a killing spree. The mission would give him the same amount of experience as killing 100 level 1 zombies. Man, the true system kicked in, and then the hack system reactivated the mission, boosting the reward. Now instead of earning 100 XP, he would get 300, and he had 24 hours to complete it. He started finding it strange that this system was being so generous. He remembered that in the past life, the system was full of tricks. It always promised things would be easy, but when he got there, it was an invincible creature. At first, a 1% item drop chance didn't seem so unfair, but when people started forming groups, everyone realized the rewards weren't enough. However, he, on the other hand, was getting extremely good missions compared to normal. Obviously, he accepted it. He had 24 hours to kill this ungrateful cat, which was calmly licking its paw. He knew this animal was a counterattack specialist, so he couldn't just charge in. So he sat down, pulled out his phone, and started reading a manhwa. When he laughed, the cat lost its temper, stood up, and jumped at him. At the same moment, Lin Zi also stood up and jumped back, dodging the attack. He transformed his phone into a katana, and the cat retreated, but then it came at him again. Once again, he dodged and found an opening to strike its back, but the cat smiled, saying that although he was clever, he never imagined it already knew his moves. It dodged again, but our boy found a chance to cut its claws. Immediately, the cat said it wouldn't forgive him for hurting it like that, but our boy just said that without claws, it couldn't win. Suddenly, the cat activated an eye ability. Our boy knew that would pull him into an illusion. He found himself in another world with a giant cat full of limbs on its face. But for him, who had lived 10 years in an apocalypse, this was nothing. The cat was confused that the boy wasn't scared. Our boy slashed its eye, breaking the illusion. At that moment, the creature tried to flee. But of course, he wasn't going to let it escape. He threw his boomerang sword, whipping it in the neck, and the boss was killed. Immediately, he completed the mission, gained a ton of experience, leveled up, and even earned an achievement. Everyone in the city was trying to figure out who this guy was, receiving announcements all the time. The author thinks it's cool to have a girl saying she wants to marry him, even though she doesn't know who this crazy guy is. Another person says they prefer to stay anonymous. Meanwhile, someone drinking wine knows that the name means he's probably from Dragon City, and having an expert like him in their group would drastically increase their survival chances. All this commotion was because everyone found out he killed that beast. He knew that the more attention he attracted, the more he would have to hide. Suddenly, he pulled up a chair and sat down. Obviously, the lazy guy needed to rest a bit after the fight. He was impressed he managed to win without getting too injured, but you have to be more careful. For killing the first boss, he earned 1,000 prestige points and 1,000 gold. At that moment, he had a total of 2,000 prestige, 5,000 gold, and 4 attribute points to spend. The Bronze Lament title gave him +2 in all attributes, and reduced the resistance of all other creatures by 5%. However, to equip that, he'd have to give up the first kill title. Since it gave more attributes, he ended up switching and wondered how strong he would be when he changed professions. Half an hour passed. The boy was so lazy that he rested before going to claim the chest. Inside it, he found a zombie kitty horn. When blown, it allowed him to summon a zombie cat to help him for 30 minutes every 48 hours. The good part was that the cat would have 60% of his protagonist's strength, and everything it killed would count for him. The only downside was that the kitty wouldn't have the 100% drop rate. But for him, who was walking around alone, having a companion to distract the creatures would be perfect. Of course, he knew that the claws, eyes, skin, and everything else from that cat could be used to make good items. So he tossed the carcass into his inventory. A while later, he headed to the warehouse because he remembered that's where the silver chest was. However, when he opened it, he was horrified. It was full of skulls and some eyes scattered on the floor. It seemed like the zombie cat was the one who had done all that. Only in the apocalypse could there be a creature that collected everyone's eyes. He knew that this little thing liked to hoard, so he started looking around to see if he could find more treasure. He spotted a dumbbell stuck on a treadmill and wondered if that was the cat's toy. Besides that amazing innovation, there wasn't much else in the room. The only thing left to check was what was under that white sheet. And to no one's surprise, there was the silver chest that should have been in that room anyway. He gained 20 prestige points for finding it, but it would take 60 seconds to open. I don't know why they put a timer on it when they always managed to open it on time. Inside, he found a white cloak and a skill book. The book granted him the double slash ability, which caused an explosion dealing 70% of his attributes. The tricky part was that you needed to land both hits, but he was confident in that. Immediately, he learned the skill, and out of the 5 skills he could equip, he now had 2. He also received the White Winged Cloak, which allowed him to glide once every 20 minutes. Look at his inventory, already getting fully equipped. However, the design of this thing is awful. It looks like a half-plucked chicken. He said the plan was just to kill Lai Hao and leave the rest of the family alone. But why do that when he could send everyone to hell? Yeah, my friend, this boy isn't exactly a good guy. Now the only thing left in that place was to complete the mission of killing 100 creatures. He entered a room and closed the door. He knocked on the wood and all the zombies turned toward him. He activated the chicken cloak effect, saying he was eager to test it out. He jumped in front of the zombies and the boy took off. He swooped down like Michael Phelps in a dive, landing a hit on their heads. He gained momentum, gliding to the other side while looking stylish. Man, this gliding is more like flying. He's just hanging there in the air. Then he said it was time to test out the new ability. He pointed at the zombie and unleashed a slash in its direction. 2 zombies were instantly taken down. And man, that ability really caused an explosion. Even he was surprised by the mess he made. His endless glide finally ended, and he had to land to avoid being thrown far. He was impressed that the zombie resisted much more than he expected. This ability had the same speed as the boomerang, but it was way more destructive. Now that he finished his experiments, it was time to start taking things seriously. We saw a bunch of notifications of him receiving gold. He kept clearing the entire gym, farming the whole place. In no time, there were piles of zombie corpses. But he started to realize his luck was running out, as the poor guy was only receiving resources. He was so lazy that he decided to pick up the boxes after everything was done. Even to receive the system's rewards, he sat down in a chair. He was going to receive a hack and new equipment. He asked for the equipment first to save the best for last. The system started announcing that a bronze-ranked item was being created. What he got was a blood absorption ring, which turned 5% of the damage he dealt into life restored to him. He quickly realized that now, against low-level creatures, he'd be practically immortal. Man, pretty soon, this boy's going to be an e-boy with all the rings he's equipping. Funny thing, though, is you can't see any rings on his fingers. He's just wearing that ridiculous chicken cloak. He then told the system it was time to get the hack, and he wanted to see something good. Of course, it would be the famous hook, but we'll only find out in the next chapter. He was shocked to see the perfect hack for him. It was basically an auto-collect hack that picked up everything the creatures dropped. He already knew that from now on, all he had to do was kill, and everything would come to him. For a lazy psychopath, this was perfect. He was worried that people would see him killing creatures and notice that he always collected a bunch of boxes. That's when he asked the system what the deal was with his hack being at level 1. The system explained that if he got the same talent in the future, the level would increase. However, he was more excited to get something different next time. He looked at the pile of dead zombies and decided to do a test. As he walked among the bodies, all the cards automatically went to him. And the hack was so good, they even organized his inventory for him. Now it was perfect for anyone with ADHD. All nice and tidy side by side. That's when he realized he'd been in this place for too long. He needed to head to the Lee family's village and start his revenge. The scene shifted to the Lai mansion. Lai Ho was lounging on the couch, happy as can be, while everyone else was suffering in the apocalypse. But suddenly, he glanced at the clock. He got up and slapped the first person he saw, demanding to know where those 2 idiots had gone and why they hadn't arrived yet. The butler explained that the 2 guards being sent to him had encountered a horde of creatures at the university and would be delayed. Lai Ho was furious with those damn zombies for ruining all of his plans, even more considering that he killed one of those zombies and didn't get any experience. What he did was ask the bodyguards to leave some zombies almost dead, just so he could deliver the final blow, but he wasn't sure why he received so little XP. That's when they heard a sound nearby. Someone had arrived at the door. Props to the forgetful artist who suddenly changed the kid's hair from blue to blonde after 30 chapters. He asked Rong, standing in front of him, if she had found the damn girl and that orphan. Rong replied that they found the girl, but the boy had already disappeared. The blonde told him to bring her in because he wanted to scold her for hiding. But Rong threw the suitcase on the ground and said she was already dead, and that she was inside. The blonde's face changed instantly, looking horrified. Rong explained that they found her body in the warehouse behind the school, and next to it was a man's bloody clothing. He also noted that she seemed to have been tortured in all the most painful places before she died. Rong was about to explain more details, but Lai Hao ran off asking for a bucket. At that point, Rong said that whoever did this probably hated the girl a lot, and he added that whoever did this might come after Lai Hao as well. Lai Hao dismissed the idea, saying it must have happened because she was the prettiest girl on campus. Then he remembered that the person who probably hated her the most for everything she did was Lin Zhe. But it was impossible that Lin Zhe was that strong, being an orphan without anyone's support. They still hadn't revealed the big surprise, so there was no way Lin Zhe could know she had been betraying him. Rong asked if this Lin Zhe was the son of Lin Jian. Lai Hao said yes, and Rong replied that whether strong or not, Lin Zhe had someone extremely skilled helping him. Maybe the 100 bodyguards they brought wouldn't be enough. Lai Hao asked how that was possible if Rong was one of the top 10 strongest in Dragon City. He ordered Rong to either go back to training or bring more bodyguards, do whatever it took to make sure he didn't die. Rong reassured him not to worry, that he would risk his life to protect him.